Good morning, everyone. I am the last Omnitech, your favorite robot American, and welcome to Gentry, Dolaan, Ain't No Fascist, a Helldivers 2 fan comic, and specifically the art part of it. Hey, everybody. Is the camera working? Or is the camera not working? Oh dear, the camera does not appear to be working. And I'm wondering why that is. Hold on. Oh, I think I know what happened. Okay. Well, I guess today is just a no... it's a no webcam kind of day. Hooray! That's always a great feeling. Okay. Let's just take this one here. We'll copy it. We'll paste it. So we're going for a classic... We're going for a classic just in case my cameras go down kind of experience. Here we go. Alright, now you all can at least see me in the upper right hand corner. It's something. Okay. So, good morning everybody. I'm the last Omnitech, and today we're going to be doing some character design for my Helldivers 2 webcomic, Gentry, Dolaan, Ain't No Fascist. And I'm doing something a little weird today. For those of you who don't know, the webcomic itself tends to be focused primarily on the primary protagonist, Gentry Dolaan, who is an Australian Helldiver, a super Australian Helldiver, who's fighting for his survival and freedom. We've been working a lot with this character for a bit, and I've already sort of fleshed out a little bit of Gentry's immediate crew on his Super Destroyer. But, while we've been doing that, I have been kind of leaving off to the side that there will absolutely be adversaries. So far, I've been kind of primarily doing stuff... hold on for a second, I'm just gonna... Blah, 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 blah. There we go. You gotta take care of the text. But yes, so far... I have been working primarily on the automaton side of things, but Gentry's going to have to be dealing with a lot more than just the automatons. Especially as he goes through and struggles against the forces of fascism and Super Earth. And so that only feels right that today we're going to be doing a little bit of work with the, I would argue, like, biggest bad guys in the setting. Or one of the biggest bad guys. So Super Earth itself, Super Earth's High Command, is arguably, like, the baddest of the bad. But if we're being real here, these guys are the ones that do their dirty work for them. So, without too much worry, as I pop over here, grab that, good, we're just gonna hit all those. Turn that on. Beautiful. Okay. Today we're going to be working on the Truth Enforcers. So, I feel like the goal here with these Truth Enforcers is kind of to go with a design that sort of gives me something easy to work with. Something that can easily replicate, but also captures what I'm going for here, which is the very Nazi-esque aesthetic of these guys. They're not nice. The Truth Enforcers are... at best, contemptible secret police. At worst, they're actual Nazis. And they're not to be considered nice, and I don't want to ever make them nice. I think I can make a compelling character that, you know, or a compelling series of characters that aren't necessarily all just translucently, obviously pure evil with no real nuance. I think I can do way better than that. So today I'm going to be making some Truth Enforcers, and I'm debating what elements to use. So right now, I've got a total of 3 designs that I'm sort of working around. The first, if this will open, I don't know why I didn't do that correctly. Here we go. Okay. So there are 3 sets of armor, specifically, in this war bond, that I'm looking at. Because I am using the war bond, since the war bond is basically like what the actual armor sets are. Here we go. Let me get the full body. Open another thing. Okay. Now that I've gotten that taken care of. So you got 3 sets of armor. The Doubt Killer, the Bloodhound, and the Inspector. These are our 3 primary antagonist armor sets that we're going to be using. Which is, one, perfect, because they really nail the aesthetic. They perfectly nail the Nazis in space aesthetic we're going for here. And they are, again, I'm not going to be defending these guys. They're despicable, contemptible secret police. So, you know, treat them as such. So I kind of want to go with a slightly more stylized version of the armor than we currently have. I like the idea of using elements of the Doubt Killer, as well as elements of the Inspector. So let's start with the Inspector. And we're just going to turn off all the loadouts. There we go. So starting with this first one. Inspector. I've been debating the name of this character. I don't want to just go with like a stereotypical German name because that's not acceptable. I might just go with the Inspector. Just keep it simple. Keep it archetypal, you know? Concept 1. And this is going to be Truth Enforcers. So we're not dealing with all the Truth Enforcers, obviously. We're dealing with a small subsection of them. Namely, the 3rd Division. So the 3rd Division, in my mind, are the, perhaps, like, most, I don't want to say professional. They're just the ones that got called in. I'm sort of going for an Andor-y sort of vibe with this. So my thought is that the Inspector here, as I add a layer, just kind of happens to be the guy who's assigned this job. Whose job is basically going to be, hey, so what's with this Gentry Dolaan guy? Who is he? What's, you know, what's the deal? We're going to reduce the opacity of this. We're going to duplicate that twice. There we go. Hit that. Cool. So now we can actually get to work drawing the shape. Now, whenever you're drawing a character who is an unabashedly bad guy, the immediate thought is to make him imposing in, like, a very specific kind of way. I don't necessarily want this person to be perceived immediately as competent, because that's, I think, a mistake that a lot of folks make when they're depicting fascism, is they think, yeah, I'm just going to make a character who's automatically hyper-competent. I want to make someone who's effectively just sort of working this out. Like, trying to find out precisely where things are. How things have fallen. I don't want them to be a good guy. I don't want them to be great at their job. Who's the character? Inspector Javert. I'm basically making my Javert here. And by the way, for those of you who are like, Javert was competent. Javert was not competent. Jean Valjean from Les Miserables literally lived under his nose for, like, decades. And literally got to know him as a member, an upstanding member of the community. So I don't think we can say he's particularly competent. I'm going to have one hand behind his back. That feels appropriate. Sort of a contrapposto, more like, well, initially contrapposto, I think, but I'm actually going to probably straighten him out a little bit more. Make him a little more at attention. So that's the case. We need to put the legs together a little more. There we go. Have our dude stand a little taller. Feet planted. There we go. Yes, I am personally of the mind that if you're going to make fascistic bad guys, your better bet than making them all, like, highly competent super soldiers, which I think actually underlies an inherent flaw in the way a lot of fiction portrays them. They are a threat, and they should always be viewed as a threat, but they're not a threat because they're hyper-competent, super-vigilant monsters. They're a threat because, well, they're hyper-incompetent, savage assholes, is what it is. They're not nice. They're not good. They're not even good at their jobs, usually. The issue for them is that they represent a seat change in the way power should be distributed. And that's where our issue with them lies. These guys are despicable pieces of shit and should be treated as such, but they shouldn't be given overly... They shouldn't be given a view of being, like, hyper-competent either. They're not ubermensch, as much as they wish they could be seen as it. Really what they are is dork-ass losers. And so I want these guys to be the sort of people that are high on their own supply. I want people to, in the comic, realize that this is about as easy for Gentry as it possibly can be, and it's still outrageously difficult. Because the entire point of the comic is that, you know, resistance is tough. If it were easy, everyone would do it. But at the same time, I don't want to do it by, like, going, oh, yes, they're completely, like... Shit, I gotta do that later again. That it's like, oh, it's super easy, barely an inconvenience. It is difficult, but not because these guys make it difficult by being, like, brilliant inspectors. It's really more a matter of just, these are the clowns running the circus. The circus is the dangerous thing, but the clowns are despicable assholes. Hey! Good to see you, Paul. Much love. It is art time, indeed. How do you? There we go. I'm just gonna put that in there. I'm making bad guys! So let's go with our helmet first. The Inspector has a very specific aesthetic that we're going with here. And I kind of dig that. I kind of want to keep that aesthetic perfect, because right now the Helldiver 2 community's kind of made the Inspector such a vivid character. They are the bad guy. And I say that because they're the guys who every meme about, you know, the haha, now face the wall meme comes from. The bad guys. I'm always making bad guys. Oh, thank you. You know, sometimes I make good guys, sometimes. Or at least neutral guys. At least neutral dudes. So there we go. So we're just going to sort of put this here. Oh, hold on. Wrong layer. Oh, that could have been bad. Alright. Proper layer here. 75%. Let's get to it. Okay. So they have this kind of like metal thing. This metal plate on the top of their armor. That kind of enshrouds them. It's almost a ski mask kind of aesthetic. Which works pretty well for them, actually. And it also really makes them look like dork-ass losers, IMO, which is perfect, because that's what I want. I want the fascists in my story to be dork-ass losers. Here we go. But yeah, so how's your day going so far, Paul? How you doing? Need to lower that a little bit, don't I? No, that's actually good. That's actually good. It just looks a little high. But it's not. It's actually the right height. I see what it is. There's this little, like, dent here that helps define the shape. I see it. I see it. That looks better already. Okay, so we got the Super Earth logo here. It's like 45. Is good. Bit of meal prep at the moment. Nice. Yeah, before stream I had to run out to the grocery store to get a couple of things myself, so I feel you on that. Okay. So let's start working out the shape on this. And not close that, please. Thank you. Good gravy. So these guys are kind of off-white. Let's make them a little more yellowy. They're sort of a bone white. Let's actually get the... Yeah, let's get this going. So we have our general shape. Put that at like 65. There we go. That's a little better. So a double pass of that. We have this sort of around the curve moment here. This little bit here. Beautiful. I'm very excited for stream this weekend. I really wanted to, I do feel bad it's going to be... So we are going to be seeing one of our returning characters leaving, unfortunately. But I'm going to be really excited to play with the rest of my players. And also, we have a new player who's going to be coming to the table. Not this weekend, but soon. So I'm really excited for that. Or rather, I should say a returning player that many of my crew might have forgotten. It's been a hot minute. Yeah, that looks good. Kind of have this, like, side thing there. Yeah, that looks good. Up and over. Yeah, very much like a skull. They have the same, like, cheekbones, too, which I noticed. Which, that works pretty good for me. And then we just sort of take this, bring that down. Cool. Then we can get into the actual dark part of this. Good, good, good. So they have like one metal bit coming down here, like a straight line. And they have the actual jawline of the armor set. Which I'm just going to improvise so that I don't go insane, because I'm drawing someone else's design all the time, and that can be a pain in the ass. So we're just going to go with like the easy one, you know? The easiest possible options. There we go. We're going to go back up to this layer again. So I almost forgot I gotta get the other side here. Cool. So we got ourselves a pretty solid design here. So anything in particular happening on your channel this week, Paul? Always happy to let folks shout out on my streams. Especially folks that actually work with me. No pressure. I know you're doing meal prep. When you get a chance, let folks know what's going to be happening. And if you're out there in the audience, keep an eye on the chat. Paul's pretty awesome. Highly recommend subscribing to their YouTube. They're a really cool creator. Okay, so we can sort of take that. Put that there. Put that there. Nice. Alright. So right now we're working with the pretty basic, like, design so far of what the Truth Enforcers kind of look like. I'm gonna probably futz around with it a little bit. Or maybe I'll leave it like this because it really is so iconic. Like, I really don't need to change too much. It's kind of like a Darth Vader ass helmet, you know? It really is so perfectly menacing. It doesn't need much help. It really doesn't. Make this a little on the dark side up here. Here we go. But yeah, this guy's gonna be the Javert of my comic. That's the plan. I want this guy practically screaming... What is it? I think it's 42... what is it? 24601. That's what it is. 24601. You remember me. 24601. I can't do that because I'm not an incredibly skilled Broadway actor. Or I guess, technically, I guess nowadays you really don't need to be an incredibly skilled Broadway actor to do Les Miserables. I can't remember his name, but he put his heart into it. I don't think he succeeded very well, but he tried. It's not Jude Law. God, I can't remember the name of the actor who did it. Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe was Javert. I remember that now. I remember seeing that movie, and you grab Russell Crowe? Not complaining. Great actor, but, like, you know... At least when they grabbed... At least when they grabbed Wolverine, like, Wolverine's actor, Hugh Jackman, is actually pretty decent at singing. Like, he's not the best, but he's got a little bit of chops. Russell Crowe really did not. It's okay, Russell Crowe. Neither do I. Not judging. Just a little mystified that you got the parts. Okay. Let's start a swatch here. Swatch. Okay. Here we go, 100%. So, what a swatch is basically a place where you put the colors you use to make a character. So in this case, he has this bone white, this sort of off eggshell grayish kind of tone to him. I'm gonna grab this. Little darker, please. There we go. Cool. So now I've got a pretty good page worth of, like, the bone white inspector color to work with. I still have to work with the red. So we're going to go from a dark red. It's a very dark red, but it is. It's like a deep crimson. We're going to go from that to, like, the sort of really deep red. Here we go. And this is like the cloth red I'll be working with here. Like the reddest possible reds. So that's for the clothing. And then finally, we have the visor. The visor is going to be the darkest red imaginable. Which then does this weird sort of gray shift vibe. But then, unlike the clothing, it ends in like a very metallic red. Here we go. Cool. Alright, so we got that. So I'm just going to take these for a minute, grab them. I'm actually just going to move this over here. Take you. That's not what I wanted to do. There we go. That's the right way. Take you, rotate you like this. And we're just going to grab this, and it should work nicely. X, V. Cool. Beautiful. Cool, so that's one swatch complete. We're going to do the same thing here. Take this, rotate it a little. Now I'm going to stretch it so I have more space to work with. That should be good. And then finally, we get in here and we just sort of carve out a chunk. It's more or less correct. Then I just take this, line it up until it is the same size. Beautiful. Cool, so that's our red cloth. And then finally, the last of our swatches. I'm going to take our boy, rotate him. Expand. Upwards and outwards. A little more. Beautiful. Great problem to have, having too much of that. XV, and then move this over. And we're going to do the same thing we did with the others. Cool. Beautiful. Cool, so now we got ourselves our 3 swatches, which we're just going to put that in as the swatch. Inspector swatch. I promise the word swatch isn't going to lose all meaning by the end of this. That's a lie. It absolutely will. I'm sorry. That's just how it's going to be. Okay. So we're going to do this over here. We got ourselves our color. Cool. We're just going to save our work as we go. And now we're going to get to the underside of the helmet. Just going to use a very dark gray for this. Not dissimilar from what we got going on up here with that weird dome, but like a little distinct. Because that's going to be hit with a bunch of metallics. Here we go. And now we're going to start hitting this with some shine. Here we go. Okay, so we got ourselves the metal. We got the metal outlined. So light's definitely coming from this side. And then we're going to go in there with one more shine layer. Beautiful. And there's usually like a brightest white kind of deal going. And I'm just going to quickly make another swatch here. So we're going to go from the darkest to the next dark. To finally the brightest or the most bright. Which isn't even the most bright because we're about to hit this bad boy with like the whitest of whites. Cool. XV. Yep. Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to take the move tool here. We're going to rasterize that. Good, that more or less fits. And that's going to be our metal swatch. Okay. So we have our metal. Visor. Red cloth. White cloth. Cool. I'm just going to move that over there. We're going to get back to our layer here. This is going to be our actual sketch. Okay. So I'm going to keep things easy. Normally you'd have like a really intricate Super Earth logo on top of the forehead. But I kind of like the idea of keeping it really simple and just having this be third inspector. Ooh, that's idea. Could just call him Inspector 3. I kind of dig that, actually. Inspector 3 has this very threatening kind of aura to it. This is a character who doesn't even have a name. You're not allowed to give him a name. Okay, let's go to our visor here. And we're just going to round this out a little. Cool. It's got these dark red eyes. We're going to go over here, back down to this swatch. And now we're going to outline this visor here. so I can see very clearly where it sits. Okay, so we got the outline. Beautiful. Now we can go back to the bright neon red. How does that look? It looks okay. Oh, I see why it's a little off. That side's a little too high. There we go. That looks a little better. Then we can sort of get back in here with this one. Clean up some detail. And we'll do the same thing on this side. Sort of give it this recessed glass kind of look. I tend to find that helps a lot when you're drawing like metallics, or you're drawing like extremely vibrant color, is to have this very specific kind of reflection. So basically, when you're drawing like a visor or something, oftentimes there's mold lines that are sort of caked into the plastic. It's to help reinforce them, but also to prevent shine and to protect the actual visor itself. So I'm kind of using that as a way to frame eyes, which works okay, actually. There we are. Got ourselves a scary helmet for a scary mans. Such a scary, scary man. Ooh, Hiangi. Okay, so we got that, we got that. We need to get a bright white metal now. Right. So we can get that. Swap that out for the purest of whites. Beautiful. Okay. So let's get our metallic on. This is going to be extremely bright, because it is a metallic. And the side facing the sun is going to get more of it. Way more of it. Side facing away from the sun's going to get a lot less. It's still going to be present. Beautiful. Okay, we got ourselves a hideously evil helmet for a hideously evil dude. Not a nice guy. TMCR. Now this has more nuts on it usually. Like there's more rivets, but For the expediency of it, I'm actually going to carve down the number of rivets just to make it so that it's just the ones on the side here. There we go. I feel like we can make that light more vibrant. Just a little bit. There we go. Yeah, that's good. That's good. There we are. So we got ourselves a pretty evil-looking helmet. Slightly modified. Let's take a moment here to add a little logo onto here. Because again, I want to do a very simple 3. A Roman numeral 3. So that would put the center of it right here. One, 2, and get our third line right here. Now I could do this with like an actual symbol, like just using the font, but I don't want to do that. So we're going to do a fancy Roman numeral 3. Too far down. There we go. Just enough where it could be visibly perceived. I'm not out here making a new font. I'm just basically recreating Times New Roman. Because it's also a very easy way to... a simple hallmark to go like, oh, this guy's a bad guy. Fun fact, if you want to give a villain character like an immediate identifiable, oh, this guy's a fascist vibe, use Roman imagery. Any Roman imagery at all. Or things we perceive as Roman imagery. So like, as an example, you want to use Roman numerals wherever you can. Almost never the province of good guys. Almost never the province of good guys. And if it is, it's usually because whoever did it doesn't realize they're mimicking that thing. It's a trait I see a lot in anime, or like in certain anime designs, where they'll have this Roman numeral aesthetic attached to it. And I think that's in no small part because a lot of like anime has this troubling issue of really, really liking fascistic imagery. But I think that's just it's like a cultural carryover from World War II. And I can't say there's not plenty of people in the West who do the exact same thing. So I think it's just specifically like a carryover from a visual identity of that era. Like, you see that actually in a fair few designs in anime, where it's like the good guys have helmets that are, or armor that's like very strikingly stormtroopery. And you're like, ugh, and not stormtrooper in the Star Wars sense. Stormtrooper in the historically distressing sense. And you're like, okay, that's not a good guy helmet. And they're like, but it looks good. I'm like, that's the point. Hugo Boss knew how to make a good-looking helmet. He was not a, that's not a good man. Okay. So you got ourselves a pretty good-looking Roman numeral here. I'm going to go back in there and fill it in just to make sure it's a little more cut and dry. There we go. Same thing here. Beautiful. Now we'll widen this a little bit here. Because one's a little thinner than the others, and I don't like that, so we're going to thicken it out a tad. There we go. there we go. So Inspector 3, at least the helmet anyway, you're going to see this helmet a lot in the comic. Like, I want this guy to be Gentry's Javert. I want this guy to be annoyingly wherever he can be in the comic. This guy's going to be, like, half of the story is going to be told from the perspective of Gentry. Or I'd say probably a third. A third's going to be told directly from the perspective of Gentry. Another third will be told from, like, a sort of third-person omniscient, sort of, or a third-person, like, referential narrative structure, where Gentry's, like, recounting something. But it's from, like, a pie in the sky, we're not sure who's really narrating sometimes kind of vibe. And then finally, the last part of the comic, I want to be narrated by this asshole. This is the guy. Folks think they're the guy. They're not the guy. This is the guy. To use the reference from, God, what was it again? Inglourious Bastards. This guy is... Oh, this guy's the Jew Hunter, more or less. I hate that he uses that name, but that is a pretty classic case of... pretty classic case of Tarantino being like, yeah, I'm just gonna title it what it is and make you cringe. I'm like, okay, yeah, it works. The name works. I feel gross even saying it referentially. I literally can't even remember the name of the character. I remember his title. Ugh. Okay, so, there are a couple places where I want things to be a little different than in the rest of the design. I want the character to be a little bit more formal. So, the actual armor I'm basing this off of, which is, again, the Inspector armor in Helldivers 2, as cool as it is, it's very much still a field uniform. Like, this is what I'd call a light service or a Class B uniform. It's approaching a Class A, but, like, it's not quite there. And also, for those of you who are like, the hell is a Class A and a Class B? What are you talking about? Hold on. I'm going to take a little moment and give you guys a little bit of education on this. So, class uniforms are basically designed where it's the level of formality, the level of authority, and the level of, like, convenience. So, I'm going to close this. Alright. So here we go. So, I'm not going to speak to the quality of this company, but this company did a pretty good job explaining it. So, the way that a Class A, a Class B, and a Class C uniform work is that these are basically variations on how you would want to dress in military service. So a Class A uniform is pretty much like the dress uniform. This is the formal uniform. You see police wear these at parades. You see military uniforms like this when they're doing work in, like, a entirely academic or, like, an entirely... not even academic, in an entirely formal capacity. Like, this is parade dress uniform. And it is worn almost exclusively to communicate the highest possible level of rank and formality. You can wear this in the field, but it would be thoroughly uncomfortable, need constant maintenance, and it would get torn up. It's almost usually ornamentation. Class B uniforms are sort of the casual, relaxed fit vibe. These are the ones that are actually kind of more the, I want to be in uniform, but, like, I'm going about my day-to-day business. It's still not, like, the lowest possible grade of, or, like, the highest focus on, like, comfort and durability, but it's, like, it's a pretty obviously recognizable dress uniform. So, like, most police officers you would see walking around, they tend to wear Class B unless they're out on the beat. Like, if they're in their office, they'll wear Class B, especially if they're, like, a desk officer, or if they're, like, the sheriff or something. You'll see a lot of cops driving around in Class B uniforms, because it's comfortable enough where they can still do what they want to do, but it still works for street duty. So, like, same thing, and this isn't just for cops. This also applies to, like, military personnel. So, like, this is, like, the standard fatigue kind of uniform that you might see in the military. where they still have the combat dress elements for it. It's ready to be used and modified for that service, but it's basically for, like, everyday work. Class C uniforms are purely like comfort and mobility. These are the literal down-to-business uniforms. This is the I know I'm going to get dirty. I know I'm going to be doing something miserable today. I wear my Class C. Now, the reason why I actually know this is because they use this same terminology in the Scouts. And so, when you're a Boy Scout, when you're referring to your Class A... When you're referring to your Class A Scout uniform, that's like the absolute pinnacle of, like, what it means to be a Scout. So, like, if I can open this up, here we go. I don't know who these guys are, but these are, like, the sleeveless versions. For goodness sake. Sure, here we go. We'll load this in. It's going to take a while, because this BSA site has, like, a million things in it. Here we go. Okay, sure, this will do. No, I don't want to share or sell my personal information. Get out of here, weirdos. Okay. Oh, huh, that's weird. It has it, but it doesn't. Fine, we're just going to use this image. Okay. So, a uniform. If I open this up, it should be right. Here we go. Okay, this will do. This is what we call a Class A uniform, more or less. This is parade duty. So this is all your different, like, ornamentation on it. You wear the full uniform. In the Scouts, Class A is really more like a Class B because you're still meant to go into, like, functions wearing this. But that's, like, everything. And this is for, like, Weeblos, by the way, which is technically not Scouts. It's technically Cub Scouts, but I'm apparently having a hard time finding, like, actual Cub Scout stuff. Class B uniform is basically, like, still wearing the pants, but wearing, like, a fancier, or, like, a slightly less fancy shirt. Then Class C uniform is, like, whatever. It's just vaguely the same colors, and it's made to be worn outside and muddied and get the shit kicked out of it. Basically the summary. So, our character here, the Inspector, like, uniform set that they have is actually what I would call a Class B uniform. This is a field uniform. It's still made to get the shit kicked out of it. It's still got, like, elements of the dress uniform that are very clearly uncomfortable. The pudgers that he's got on for his pants, basically like the poofy pants. The highly pressed pant, like, literally, you can see a crease line on that. You can see a crease line on that boy's slacks. That boy takes an iron to his pants. That or he gets them likely, more likely, he gets those pants pressed by the quartermaster when he's not in field. His boots are very high heel. They're, like, very up there. That's actually calf boots right there. Which, depending on how they're made, can actually be pretty functional. But they still look very fancy. So I think, again, like, there's that split between, like, it still works as field boots, but I wouldn't want to be marching in those all day long. But then you get to the upper body, and it's like, okay, the shoulder there has, like, a leather jacket kind of vibe. If this guy were to reach up too fast, his shirt would rip. His jacket would certainly rip because of the way it's tailored. But at the same time, it's still got actual practical armor attachments. It seems like it's made out of a more durable cloth. Like, it has functionality attached to it still. It's not much. I would say this is, like, a perfect example of a Hugo Boss, like, Class B uniform. Again, I say Hugo Boss, the guy who made Nazi uniforms. And the reason I say that is because the guy was hired to make the uniforms look good, not be functional. Which is why if you see any historical footage of Nazis in World War II in field, they're almost always in varying states of, like, modification to their uniform. Very often, tank crews would just basically take their uniform off and just wear a wife beater and whatever their pants are. Like, some would even run around without boots. When you're in the field, it was extremely common for them to unbutton their coats. Like, super common for them to unbutton their coats. And they would almost never wear the poofy pants. They were, like, much more simple, like, pants that were not pressed. And oftentimes they would plunder equipment from other soldiers. Not because they didn't have a full uniform, they did. They'd use that for their standard, like, service. But, like, to be completely honest, the Allies and the Russians had more comfortable clothing. Because their uniform was made for function, not dress parade. So, like, this is a Class B. But it's an improvised Class B, it looks like. It looks like someone took a Class A and dressed it down. They took elements of it out and replaced it with elements that function still. I want to make the Class A version of the Inspector. I want this character to not be able to go in field in this uniform. This dude is not allowed out in the field. So we're not going to have the classic armor at all in terms of, like, the armor plating. I do like the idea of having a shoulder thing, but I don't like the idea of it actually being a like a functional shoulder plate. Basically, I'm going for like a full Imperial officer's getup, more or less. Inspector 3, I figure, is going to be very much a character who's in sort of always falling behind the scenes, sort of Imperial... What's the name? What are they called again in Andor? The Imperial Security Bureau, I think? ISB? Let's see, Imperial Security Bureau Headquarters. Or the ISB Central Office. That's the one. I'm basically making an ISB officer here. They're not made to be in field. They're never meant to be in field. At least this guy's not meant to be in field. So I figure he still has some of the elements. He needs to keep the aesthetics correct. Because the van braces are absolutely a part of the uniform. For sure. There's no way. There's no way someone doesn't go through all the effort of making those van braces and doesn't want you to wear them on parade. Like, not a chance. Okay. I want to keep the cut of the uniform so far. And I do really like the idea of there being like a sort of a bit here that comes down. Cool, that works. Alright, so then we're going to go with our belt. Belt is cinched high on the waist. Most military uniforms do that because actually your belt isn't meant to sit on your hips in field. Your belt is meant to be pulled in tight between your ribs and your hips so they cannot move. And so that way when you're sprinting, your pants don't slide down. It's also meant to keep your coat closed, which is why a lot of like military uniforms of that era are very greatcoaty. Like that's kind of the idea. It's meant to keep your greatcoat closed, so when you run, you don't end up like, you know, basically pulling a trench coat flasher kind of vibe. It's meant to be both functional and also, like, visually identifiable. So we're going to have the cinched tight belt. I like the idea of taking the same, like, clothing design we have here, but extending this into an actual proper greatcoat. So you really only see, like, the tops of the poofs for his pants. So we're going to sort of do this. Here we go. And we're definitely going to have the high boots. I want this dude to have high boots. Again, we're going for maximum fascist imagery here. This dude is not supposed to look nice. I don't want him to look nice. I want him to be appears on screen for people to be like, ugh, which is the point. Anytime he's in the webcomic, I want people to be like, I don't know if I should like this armor set anymore, and me to go, yes, that's correct. Fascist imagery is unpleasant. Because again, what's the point of writing an anti-fascist webcomic if I water down the fascists? Let them be as despicable as they're supposed to be. Let them be horrible people. In webcomics. In real life, oppose them on every front. For the love of God, please do that. But, for the purpose of a webcomic, let your fascists be fascists. Let them be the despicable assholes they're supposed to be. Don't censor them. Don't make them less likely to be bad guys. Let them just embrace it. If they want to be that asshole, let them be that asshole. Okay, so this is where I get to do a little bit of improvisation here. Okay. So this is pretty far down. That cuts in pretty high. I think what I'll do is I'll actually bring it up a little higher. There we go. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That still keeps the imagery. And we can sort of pull that down here. Beautiful. Okay, cool. So we have this really unpleasant image of this figure. I'm going to add an underlayer here of the base cloth color. We'll go with the neutral cloth color. I want to go with white. And I know a lot of people are like, why white? Well, first off, that is the color of the uniform that they use. They use a creamy bone white. But also I like it because it immediately is a color that's usually, at least in the West, identified with good. It is a holy color by most people's assumptions. And I want to take that and just flip that on its little head. And make it the color of the most despicable piece of shit possible. And this guy is a despicable piece of shit. Make no mistake. I'm willing to humanize a lot of my characters. I'll give you that. And I'm even willing to let people see the motivations of these despicable bastards. For sure. But I'm going to tell you point blank. I have no interest in redeeming this character. If you're here to watch the fascist get to turn around his life, that's not what this comic is about. There are characters that will get chances. That might even get second, third, and fourth chances to do right. I'm not against a good Zuko arc. But the contemptible secret police? Nah. That ain't happening. I'm going to do a little deviation from the actual, like, initial design. The initial design of this... Oh, hold on. Gotta clean that up a little bit. There we go. So, like I said, the initial design here has white everything. But I kind of want to change this up a tad. So let's get this cloth darker. I want to have elements of black in this uniform. What if I make the gloves black? That works. And then I can sort of go with this part here being black. And I'm actually going to make this whole section of the uniform black. So, less of a perfect white and more of a shadowy element to it. How would that look? I'm going to play around with these colors a bit. I kind of like that. And if that's the case, I think I might go with the pure white on the chest. Just for the sharpest possible contrast. No, it makes him look like too much of a doctor. Okay. So we'll keep the beige on the gloves. Actually, no. I like the black on the gloves at least. We'll keep the black on the gloves. As far as the boots go, I want those to be black. Because again, I know the standard uniform is white, but I want this to be like a slight deviation from it. Okay, so that gives us something. But we're not quite done yet. There's one element you always can add to a uniform to really knock it into the this is not wearable in like a battlefield scenario. And that is an absolutely iconic piece of imagery, the cape. So this is the color base. So to go into the sketch here, I'm going to add a cape layer. So normally, your cape would be attached around the neck completely, which I kind of like the idea of this dude actually, instead, having it drape around his neck like that with a connecting device. And then having this very fancy, overly ostentatious cape. Sort of draping around the back. And we're just going to sort of pull that up there. Let's actually not have him holding it. Let's just have it be naturally that long. Because again, there's, like, all the capes in Helldivers are very, very long. They're all meant to be very hilariously over-the-top long. I want this character to literally wear a cape that even other Helldivers would be like, that's a fancy, incredibly impractical cape. I want everyone else to be like, what? Oh, this guy is out here farming aura. Like, that's all he's out here doing. And yes, I'm going to use that unironically in this respect. I feel like I can. And I feel like anyone who says I can't can go jump off a hill. It's my life. I get to say what I want to say. We're going to go with silver for the bit across the neck, much like the metal on top. I believe I chose the right color. There we go. Okay, cool. So we can sort of outline this with the light a little bit more. I can put the two little bits here. I kind of like it being actually two segments. One, two. I'm just going to do these separately. There we go. So we've got the fancy. The beginnings of the fancy up here. We're going to go into the rest of the metal bits here. Put this at like 25. So this guy here, super fancy, super evil, and kind of going for a Grand Moff Tarkin kind of energy. I also like the idea he does not take off his helmet, ever. And if he does, that's going to be a huge part of the comic. But, like, aesthetically speaking, no one really sees this guy's face on the regular. He's entirely this masked, fascistic image of fascism. This fascistic icon. It's kind of what I'm going for here. Okay, and we're going to take this, hit the dark little bit in there. Here we go, and this will help us separate this a little more. And then we're going to take that, swap that around. This sort of gives us the immediate image that there are, in fact, hooks keeping this thing together. Beautiful. And now as for the cape, this beautiful white cape, I think. But I like the idea that the interior is pitch black or blood red. I think blood red will work better for this aesthetic. Okay, so you got this nice cream white, which we will stark up, by the way. It's gonna shoot all the way up to a very vibrant, pure white eventually. Like, unnatural parade uniform white could not possibly be wearing this in field. Cool. So we got that. I'm going to go with a deep crimson red for the interior of our cape. Alright, we're going to hit this with a much darker shade very shortly. But for now, this is just to get a very simple design going that I can work off of in the comic. Alright, we're getting to the end of that. Feels pretty good what we got. Beautiful. Beautiful, evil, good shit. After all, webcomics fascists are only as good as their ability to intimidate our heroes. What, this is 25. We're going to do this as a darken. Here we go. And I want this side to be almost completely in the dark. Beautiful. And this other side's going to get to nearly black with how dark it's going to be. There we go. So this very deep crimson color going on. And then finally, for our belt, I'm going to give it a nice gray splash. Put that at normal, please. There we go. Let's in fact make it black. So we can take this, hit the metallic on it. We're going to hit this with a very pale white to denote the top of the belt. And then we're going to go into our metallics here. Grab this. We want to make sure our dork-ass loser has a very aesthetically pleasing sort of a deal going. And then finally, the metallics. There we go. Okay. Inspector 3, more or less complete. I feel pretty good about that. I might add, like, one little detail onto here. And follow me on this, because I think it'll be good. Okay. So the normal Inspector boots have this, like, ridged aesthetic to it. Almost like bones, kind of. And they have this red triangle motif. We're going to try to copy that somewhat. But we're going to do it in black. And there's going to be a white on this as well. And it's almost like sneakers, the way they have the bottom of the boots. I kind of dig that. That's actually a pretty smart design element. I'll give credit to whoever the costume designer was. They aren't complete lunatics. They're still lunatics, but, like, you know, at least they're lunatics with a sense of fashion. Someone designed that class uniform realizing that a human will eventually wear it. Eventually. There we go. Then we're going to go to the highest possible color. There we go. Cool. And as for the boots down here, there's a part of it's like, I'll try the white in this bit. We'll see if it works. I don't know, it might, actually. I wasn't expecting that. Alright. Maybe? Maybe we keep the white strips? I'll only be able to tell if it works when I see it done on both legs. The top of the boot in white. How does that look? Actually, not terrible, but I think what we'll do is that's a little too much detail to add. So instead what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to have a cream top of the cuff of the boot, because that looks pretty good. And we're just going to leave that like that. Yeah, that looks fine. That looks fine. The piping helps, but it's not over the top. Okay, so we got ourselves a rough doodle here of Inspector 3. The primary initial antagonist of Gentry, Dolaan Ain't No Fascist. hell yeah. Expect to see this despicable piece of shit in comics coming very soon. Alright, for the moment, we'll leave it with this. But, everyone, take care, have a good one, and I'll see you here next time. Peace. Oh, and before you fully go, please do me a favor, check out the doobly-doo. You'll find Gentry, Dolaan Ain't No Fascist, our fan comic down there, on my Patreon for free to read for anyone who's interested. You don't need to be a paying member, just following does it, and it'll help get you all the updates of what's going on my channel. Paying patrons, you guys get a little extra, including the webcomics 2 weeks early. So there is a benefit, but you'll find the entirety of both my webcomics up there for free, as well as all my TTRPG stuff as I work on it and my other creative works. Plus, you'll be helping keep the lights on for anyone who actually is a paying patron. And on top of that, I get to shout out folks at the end of webcomics who are particularly helpful. So you'll be seeing that very shortly. Anyway, take care, Voyagers, have a good one, and I'll see you out there.